Hey folks, we're back for another discussion. Alright, now we're picking off in this video where we left off in the last video, and that is sort of continuing the discussion about the scripture in Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses 19 to 22 in relation to the false prophecy that Watchtower made. Now, without sounding too castigating or too scolding, I would like to point out that an honest-hearted Christian at this point would walk away from the organization. It really, seriously speaking, it only takes that one thing. And I'm not suggesting that simply because the organization has made an error, or any organization has made an error, that you should not follow them, that you should avoid that organization. I mean, that would be completely ridiculous because we all make errors. I've made errors. And I openly, readily admit that I am an imperfect human being and that my interpretation of the Bible and my viewpoint on Scripture may not be the correct one. But neither do I claim to be an inspired prophet of God, and that is where we find the distinction. I don't think that any of us here in the community would take the Watchtower to task for making simple human error. We don't take the Catholic Church to task for making simple human error, or the Lutheran Church, or any other church for making simple human error. Where the complaint lies, in its true essence, is that they claim to be something more. They claim to have godly direction. And when you wander into that territory of claiming godly direction and you make errors to such a large degree as Watchtower, then it becomes obvious that this entity is not being led by God. They're, simply the blind leading the blind. And it's irritating to think about the stubborn nature of Jehovah's Witnesses that they refuse to acknowledge this. They refuse to acknowledge when they've made an error. As the elders do there. They not once admitted that it was a false prophecy, which it flatly was. In much the same way that Harold Camping is a false prophet, so is the organization. They said that the conclusion would happen in the 20th century. It is now the 21st century. It does not take a rocket scientist, nor does it take a mathematician to figure out that they made a false prophecy. Of course, I discuss more Watchtower fallacies later, but I think in this 15-minute portion we can also really see the uncurious nature of Jehovah's Witnesses and the non-investigative approach that they take to their own religion. They're not curious in the slightest about a true examination of the doctrine or a true examination of their own company's publishings. One of the quotes that was leveled against me was, "Where did you get your information?" To which I replied, "The Watchtower." But seriously, does that even matter? What should be investigated is not where I received the information from, but whether or not the information is true. I claimed that it was from the Watchtower library, and it was. Every single quote that on my 14 pages of information, which I will be publishing at some point, and I'll, when the time comes, I will provide a link to my Facebook page and my notes where you can access those quotes. Every quote that I got off of there, I ripped from my own personal copy of the Watchtower Library CD-ROM. It doesn't matter to them whether it's true or not. They're simply trying to get, oh, well, you looked at apostate literature, which, by the way, their definition of apostate is somebody working against their organization, and that's not the scriptural definition of an apostate. An apostate is somebody that is actively working against the will of Christ, if you want to operate off of the biblical definition of apostasy, and yet somehow or another they say that I don't respect scriptural authority? I don't get it. How does that one work? Yeah, actually they say, Brad, he apparently felt sick, but he finally speaks up for the first time in the evening, and he says, Brother Hatcher, as these scriptures have been presented to you in a logical fashion, you keep saying that I think about these scriptures, but you disagree with the scripture. And that's not true at all. So what, even if I do say I think, what is the difference between what I think and what the Watchtower thinks? Because apparently, even from their own admission, the Watchtower does get things wrong. They have printed wrong information. And of course, the big difference is, again, I don't claim to be an inspired prophet, and they do. And when you claim to be a prophet of God, you can't do that stuff. You can't make an incorrect interpretation. That's the only way that you can recognize a prophet of God, is if they are correct. And the Jehovah's Witnesses multiple times have made incorrect assertions about the scriptures and about, well, I mean, Armageddon. They wanted to predict the end of the world. I mean, God, multiple times over the past century, and successively they have gotten it wrong. It's so simple, and yet this brother wants to take me to task for offering my opinion on the scriptures. See, it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. It essentially matters to him whether or not I agree with their interpretation. See, once they present a scripture, which of course I think is evident that these scriptures do not apply to me and do not apply to my situation and are misapplied to somehow pigeonhole me in an area where they feel self-righteous and vindicated. But they only want me to conform to their will, their opinion. In fact, when I admitted, yeah, I have been reading literature that has spoken against your organization, they said, why would you take what they have to say over Jehovah? Again, I don't think that this can be overemphasized. I get continuously frustrated that they equivocate their fallacious, false organization with God Jehovah, when the evidence is so painfully clear that their organization is far removed from any recognizable form of deity that a Christian would recognize, because they have led their followers into apostasy by rejecting Christ even each year at the memorial. They reject the sacrifice and the sacrament because they have to uphold their own understanding of the 144,000. They then teach their followers to reject Jesus. They are leading their followers into apostasy. And that's what happens every time when you place an organization in the position of God, which this quote just exemplifies to the nth degree. I asked the brothers if it was possible that they were misled by Satan. Of course, I would never ask somebody to admit something that I would not do so myself. I said, it is possible that everything I'm doing is in fact motivated and led and directed by Satan. Because, I mean, hey, these supernatural forces at work, nobody is quite certain what's going on, and even the most well-intentioned person has done evil things. I believe, one of the most common well-known sayings is that the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. And so I admitted that it is possible, though with a pure heart and with good intentions, I could be being misled. I could be being misled, that's correct. And when I asked them if they would admit the same thing, their response was, well, I consider myself to be an intelligent person. I've done a lot of research. It's like orange juice. So apparently that makes me not an intelligent person, and that makes the research I've done inferior to the research they've done. Right, okay. And so we see the haughty nature of Jehovah's Witnesses just shine through. We're better than you is the only claim to fame that they have. They bring out the ministry work. Well, wouldn't you say that the ministry work has to be done? Sure, yeah, Jesus did say that one must preach the good news in all parts of the earth, and then the end would come. So sure, ministry work, part of Christian worship. I can't disagree with that. But you're not going to be declared righteous by works. It says that straight, so plainly in the Bible. But they ignore that part of it. They make righteousness declared by works. That's the only claim to fame that they have. But guess what? It doesn't matter how many hours of ministry that you put in. it's never going to save you. The only thing that can save you is the ransom sacrifice of Jesus Christ, which, of course, Jehovah's Witnesses love to pass over at every memorial. Oh no, that sacrament isn't for me. Here you go, brother. Oh, that guy over there. Yes, he can accept the sacrament, and he serves as the mediator between God and me, not Christ, the anointed people. Yes, that's completely right. It's late. I'm tired. This has not been one of my finer commentaries, but nevertheless, the show must go on, as they say, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm glad that you're enjoying the continuing epic saga of the AnonDude2 Judicial Committee. Thanks. Remember that life is a state of mind. I almost forgot it. See ya.